Okay, we have made it. It's 3/17/2025. Any minute now, the audio streams will pick up. We had a false start a minute ago, and that was because it was like Windows 365 was trying to hijack my system, and I had to decline politely like 50 times. A couple new things. I did the numbers, and I realized, we shouldn't put off the circulation of the tabloid just because we don't have the funding for it, because it's kind of a big undertaking. So what makes more sense to me, because going digital defeats the purpose. This is not about just the content. It's about being in the meatverse, because we're in a metaverse dominant world today. So it just turns out that the site that I use to format the newspaper also does printing, and they can do a small version of it, fraction of the cost, same file, which means that for the time being, we'll circulate it in larger numbers, a smaller size, same content, and then down the road, I can just back order it and go through my regular printer. So I will be placing an order for Insider 2 and 1 here in the next 48 hours. So any more submissions, send them in. There's still time. And let's see. What else? Oh, yes. I'm moving the site over. I'm hosting my own WordPress site, which means I'll have a lot of functionalities that WordPress.com actually kind of gatekeeps. So a couple of improvements. I've just been, even though we haven't been live for the last couple of days, we haven't been here as much. I've been extremely busy in the background. In fact, we have activated bots in our new, well, not new, but our recently repurposed Telegram. I have a bot right now that's chatting. It's got the brain of, ChatGPT. It has the programming of Autohoaxology 101, the lexicon. And I'm developing these bots, which will be responding to tweets and also, I think, self-generating tweets at regular intervals very soon. And we're not talking about spam bots. We're talking about useful entities on there. For some reason, the ones on X aren't working, and I've tried multiple accounts, but I'm not giving up. Others have run into the same problem, but I tested the same application on other platforms and it works just fine. So it's just a matter of time, and I'm pretty sure there's some kind of shadow gatekeeping. Some of you may recall that back when they started Spaces, I was banned on Spaces. On one account, I could go live. On another, I could not. And I figured it's because I don't believe in space. Musk isn't, he's like, don't let him on. And we have evidence that we're spied upon by Musk's head of engineering over at Starlink. Or at least they're following us for some reason, and they weren't following anybody else at the time. But I'm pretty sure that account has long been banned. Looks like I've got bots taking over my other computer. So if you're listening on the audio streams and it's glitching, just go to ips.monster or infiniteplanesociety.com. Or infiniteplane.live I should be promoting. Infiniteplane.live is probably the best link. It takes you right to the YouTube. Joined by Deprogrammed Truther, Penguinati, Autohoaxer, Michelle K, Ted Stryker, Thirst for Truth, Ears Up, Max, Poncho Lefty, and Critterfest. All right, thanks for joining. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So, last week, and I haven't seen it yet. I might just go watch it tonight if I have time. Captain America. I was looking at Mark Ruffalo, thinking about the whole Hulk connection and how Trump is represented by him in this movie, Captain America. And how Trump is also represented, I'm sorry, this is in Mickey 17. So Trump is in Mickey 17 as Mark Ruffalo, who used to play the Hulk. Well, Trump is represented by Harrison Ford in Captain America, which happens to be the Red Hulk. He becomes the Red Hulk. So 2 presidents, 2 Hulks, 2 movies representing Trump. And here's how I explain it. In the Mark Ruffalo instance, he's actually shot at and a bullet grazes his face. He talks about colonizing an all-white planet. Pretty close. They've been commenting on this recently. The Captain America trailer, where the president is shot at, was released the day before Trump was shot, and they had to alter it. So then I thought about the fact that after Trump was shot, Hulk Hogan entered the scene. So I don't know the connections here between Hulk Hogan and the Hulks and Trump and these other characters, but there's a pattern here. So I was thinking, what would JL do? Jurassic Liars. I checked the birth date, and we found some interesting stuff about Mark Ruffalo. His birth date being 11/22. JFK's death day, and he plays somebody. This is all just interconnected. It goes deep. So we're going deep into the Metascript here. I put an article about it called President Hulk if you want to see for yourself. And I'm building up our wiki with the help of Perplexity AI and others. And if you haven't seen it yet, just go to autohoax.com and click the link, get into the wiki, and you can see we're finding some incredible material. And we're building a wiki that isn't going to get shut down. Because we're not asserting this was fake or this person is an actor. Rather, we're saying this is what people have said. This is what the media says. This is the related predictive programming. This is the related drills that coincided with the event. So we're making these connections that are there. We're just pointing out things that are they're there. It's not like we're cherry picking. And I'm getting interesting comments from Perplexity because it says that these are just coincidences. This cannot be the result of deliberate action. Like, I can see that there's some kind of internal gatekeeping within these bots where they're not going to state the truth because they operate on the base assumption that the screen, that what is televised, what is broadcast, is vetted information, validated, reality tested. So they exist, that is, all these various, whatever you use. I like Claude AI, but they do exist within the fictional universe of the MSM described by the mainstream mediation. Okay, so let's see what else we had today. There's a few things. We've talked about these interesting connections again. Luigi and Wario, which is kind of funny, considering that when Musk played Wario, he was not quite the villain he is right now. That kind of came later. And the plot twist with Musk becoming this villain and stealing the election and radicalizing the right, that's all new. But it followed in the madness, which again ties into the mind virus idea that the right wing is fomenting mind viruses that turn people radical and violent. Braveheart says, I notice you don't cover music directly. Is there any reason why? I'm not sure what you mean. Cover music directly. If you could elaborate, because we're frequently talking about movies, films, video games, and oftentimes music does play a big part in it, especially the musicians who take part in the big symbolic events like the Super Bowl. We talk about the various personalities that are used as propaganda vectors for the psyop entertainment complex, who are musicians, people like Ye, who's in the news right now. He just released an album with a swastika on the cover. And this follows an episode of South Pole where he's on a leash held by Ice and Sori, and when she lets him off the leash, he escapes. And the first thing he does is he starts live streaming and hailing Hitler with the Nazi shirt, and now he actually is selling that Nazi shirt, and it's on his album cover. Now, anyway, this gets kind of deeper. We were looking at the also the correlation between the Super Mario Brothers from the 90s with King Koopa, who was based on Trump, according to the director. And he has the Koopa Towers, which are the Twin Towers, and they get vaporized. He's played by Dennis Hopper. So I look at Dennis Hopper, and I'm like, that's interesting. His death day is JFK's birthday, and is also the birthday of John Hinckley Jr., the guy that shot Reagan, who was inspired by a Robert De Niro character in Taxi Driver. The character Travis Bickle, who's the basis for Joker. It's fascinating how connected it is. Sakine, so the wiki that it's called, well, it's an X wiki. Go to autohoax.com or just go to IPS, the main website. I'll make sure I put a link out there if you haven't been there yet. And what you'll do is just click the link, and it just says, join the Autohoax wiki. And what I'm doing is I'm gathering all of the information about the major psyops of our time, all the big fake news events, things that we suspect to be fake, and we just use actual great citations to make our claims. So, for example, white noise at East Palestine, Ohio. And this is just scratching the surface because we're doing the surface level stuff they can't deny. And then we go into the Metascript, the story, which builds upon the idea that all of this is intentional. And it is. It's not caused by the universe or some mystic cause. And that's what distinguishes this think tank from mainstream alternative media, is that the conclusion they have reached, which is really a cul-de-sac at this point, so something of a dead end, is that the best explanation for fake news being mirrored by drills and predictive programming is the universe is just fucking with us. It's just the matrix winking at us. It's just a coincidence or synchronicity because you're so awakened to the simulation. No, that's crap. That's stuff that the intel agencies have planted here so you don't come to the right conclusion. And we've come to the right conclusion, and I knew there would be a point where I would have the manpower to put all the content together in an undeniable way. And we don't have the manpower yet, but we do have AI, and it's actually doing exactly what I thought would happen. So here I have white noise at East Palestine, Ohio, eerie parallels, local involvement, public reaction, celebrity response. So it says here, media outlets emphasize the striking similarities between the fictional toxic event in white noise and the real derailment in East Palestine. Both involved trains carrying hazardous materials, massive fireballs, and evacuations due to toxic fumes. And then what's more, articles noted that East Palestine residents worked as extras in white noise. This added a layer of surrealism to the real-life disaster as locals found themselves living through a scenario that they just acted out months earlier. So the actors either became victims of the real thing, or the actors also doubled as crisis actors. Were these extras chosen to add to the story? Because what my contention here is that the entire event was fake, and that every event that is predicted eerily in the entertainment is actually fake. That's actually a rule. The film became a focal point of discussion among residents, and some said it was hit too close to home. And the trailer for White Noise saw a surge in views. Adam Driver, who starred in White Noise, described it as a, quote, bizarre coincidence, and expressed unease over the parallels. Not a coincidence that Adam Driver is the face of Megalopolis, plays Caesar, who represents Trump. There's this constant correlation between Trump head wound, which happens in that movie, an assassination attempt, and the fallout, mushroom cloud, toxic airborne event, the nukes. But what I have here as well are all of the various articles, New York Post, CNN, IMDb, Salon, Axios, Business Insider, that talked about these, quote, bizarre coincidences, the mirroring, how the hazardous materials, etc., it's all right out of the movie, but how people had to relive it. Uncanny parallels, local involvement, media reaction, emotional impact. Now, I'm also bringing this up because this isn't something that we've cherry-picked, and this is something that we actually regularly predict. And I'm going to do a big one on the madness, where we are looking at movies that are trending, that are number one, that are being viewed by the most number of people at a given time, and we're checking the messaging and noting what's going to happen in the near future, and we're right all of the time now. So at this point, we've established a working model for understanding what the closed system of media actually is. That this is just an internalizable Truman show that you can opt out of. But it's an alternate reality game, It's rigged. Our entire reality is rigged. But the simulation aspect of it isn't that nothing's real, everything is real. It's that the version of things has been tampered with. And if you confuse the map with the territory, you might arrive at some schizoid conclusion that says that nothing's real. And that's the wrong way. I used to say to the Mandela affected, what difference does it make if the news is fake if you are asserting that reality's fake? And the assertion that reality's fake is a form of gaslighting. If the alt media can get you to think that reality's fake, you have been gaslit because it's not fake. The news is fake. There's a big difference. And the liars, the fakers, the ones who create the fakery, would like nothing more for you to arrive at erroneous conclusions, which is the standard. That's pretty much how things are. And I have a course I'm working on very soon. It's going to be a Exit Trutherville course. Like I've said before, I'm not interested in targeting the MSM blue pill dreamers, let them sleep, let them have their blissful ignorance. But I said that the only demographic worth reaching out to directly, appealing to directly, would be MSM plus red pill addicts. I don't have any hope in the QAnon because they're so deep into the politics, but I think that there's a demographic, a substantial, sizable group who see through, generally speaking, the fakery, but still have a bias towards trutherism. So they recognize mainstream lies, but they sort of trust alt media for some dumb reason. And I think we can fix that and do a course correction for a lot of people. But that's kind of the objective here. Okay, Isabel Ann, thank you for this. I was wondering about this. NASA crew docked 9 months and 11 days after Butch and Sonny left for space. Fascinating. I was wondering if the 9 months might have some significance. We're talking about the twins. They're not really twins, but there's some symbolism there. Launching in Gemini, and I recall the Wilmore Williams. There was a lot of twin stuff we were talking about, and I was thinking there's got to be some significance also to the Odyssey stuff connecting with it. But they're on their way back. And I'm not sure if there's going to be a disaster to make Musk look bad, because they've really got the public to care about these two for some time. Sakine says, an AI scrape of occurrences of numbers like 33 in the news relative to other numbers would be interesting. Yeah, exactly. I was actually going through it yesterday, and I was asking, can you give me a list of mass murderers or cult leaders that turned 33 when they went active? And I started scraping different sources, just combing around and you know, again, not cherry picking, but applying a kind of a formula to it. There's certain criterion. And yeah, the results are going to speak for themselves. And this is why I'm confident saying it's time to go ahead and move on with this. It's time to go ahead and get past Trutherville, exit Trutherville. Not just us, but everyone who's still falling under the spell. I mean, they're being lied to. And sometimes the lies are omissions, sometimes the lies are false explanations, but the false explanations are preventing people, again, from stepping outside of the closed system. And that's kind of what we're offering here. King Ravena says, Harrison Ford, Yellowstone show. Haven't seen it. But so a couple of things. So Harrison Ford, Captain America, becomes the Red Hulk. I noticed that he crashes his planes a lot, and I think those are all staged and fake. How many times has Harrison Ford... See, this is something that we should be looking into as well. He's always crashing his plane. He's trying to land it in his driveway or something. I don't know if it's tying into his Han Solo mystique. But his birthday, 7/13. Trump was shot, 7/13. Julius Caesar's birth date, 7/13. All of this seems significant. And we talked about these. And then, of course, when the movie was playing in Liberty, the theater, in the Liberty Theater in Washington, the ceiling collapsed. And speaking of, I think that France is recalling the Statue of Liberty. France wants Lady Liberty back as anti-American sentiment rises across the borders. Now, haven't we all concluded that the Statue of Liberty is either Elvis or Lucifer or both? Or it's Lucifer, but the face looks like Elvis and it's not a coincidence. And if you think about it, it's from an occultist perspective, it makes sense because Lucifer is associated with Venus and the metal copper, the color green, and often the torch would be symbolic of this. But you can look specifically at the statue; it's made of copper. Okay, let's see here. But would anything you got from AI in a 33 script be real? Remember during COVID? Right, right. You have to be careful about this as well because there's still some people who think that they find evidence. Look, I searched for Google and the news was reporting on this yesterday. It's like, well, no, when it aggregates the information, what you're searching will show up with the current date, but it might be it mixes things up. So you're looking at a current story, but it's showing a date from a previous story. So people have to cross reference their information, not jump to conclusions. That's why I say when there's an event like a plane hitting a helicopter, don't think you have enough information to believe it's true on day one. The believers, the low information believers, they will believe it day one. They'll believe headlines. But if you are a skeptic, you have to wait a couple days, as we did. And I said, let's wait for drills. And if there's drills, it's probably a hoax. And what did we see? Oh, look, they're doing drills for rescuing people out of the ice. Oh, look, they were doing a continuity of government evacuation drill when it happened. Oh, look, a bifurcated interpretation for the political horseshoe. If you're left wing, you can blame Trump and Musk for cuts to the number of air traffic controllers. So anti-government. If you're right wing, you can blame DEI, liberalism, female pilots. It's perfect. And so it just too perfectly fits into a template, and all the psyops are templated. And that's one thing I need to really emphasize here is that we have a bit of a system, a methodology here. We do look for a certain template of things that don't happen in real life. And okay, another thing too. So there were supposedly 32 people died in these storms. Probably real, I don't know. But it is said that Musk and Trump cut funding to NOAA. So Noah's flood, in other words, the left, the statists, they warn us that if the private sector isn't regulated, and it's NOAA warning us, there's going to be a flood. Gaia's going to lash out at us. So now we have this big storm, and it's going to be blamed on capitalism. It's going to be blamed on private enterprise. But at the same time, the deaths are going to be blamed on the cuts to government, the cuts to NOAA. And the connection between the biblical NOAA and the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration is not a coincidence. This is part of the template. This is one of their things that they do all the time. It's like even their symbol's a dove. It's like, okay, the dove over the ocean, that's Noah's symbol. Mango says 40 died, I heard. Yeah, probably 40 makes more sense because 40 days of rain, 40 nights. 33, 42 deaths. Yeah, but my point here is that one, they were reusing Old Testament mythology for psychological warfare and for allowing one group of society to scapegoat the other group for being wicked. In this case, it's their carbon footprints. But then two, they're able to directly apply it to Musk and Trump for cutting NOAA. So it's kind of interesting. I say this before, like space is a heaven that atheists will believe in. Aliens are angels for atheists. And climate change is eschatology for atheists. And scientism, not science, it's a capital S thing. It's an ism. It is their religion. Nasatology, MSM Church, scientism, and you can see it on full display. Okay, let's see. New bombshell incoming. 80,000 pages of JFK files set for release. Will confirm what we've always suspected. We'll see. More smuggled eggs and fentanyl. Okay, let's see what else. Russian spies, airstrikes on Yemen. Ceasefire. Israel moves towards Hamas ground invasion, escalating tensions to new heights. Tesla halts Cybertruck deliveries over major defects. So these are just some of the headlines I just picked up on. I was just testing something out because I'm trying different forms of time-saving devices. And one thing you'll notice in archives now is I'm having the Perplexity do a breakdown of the transcript. So it's not the whole transcript, but it'll be direct quotes and links. So anything I talk about and a website I mentioned, it'll actually have a link for it. Verk Jun says, yeah, in scientism, people say things like, I can't believe there are people who don't believe in space. It's their belief system. Yeah, I'm a non-believer. And you have to remember that religions have always hated the non-believers. They hate us. It's like off with our heads. Throw rocks at us, whatever they do. But we are specifically looked at as terrible for some reason because we're non-believers. It's not that we believe the wrong thing. The non-believers don't even, we're unacknowledged. They don't even censor us, really. We're just not acknowledged. And I'm fine with that. Because I'm taking the stance that we should be non-believers in the information age. We should be knowers. And if we don't know it, we should be able to say, well, I don't know yet. I'm pending more information. I don't know if this plane really hit this helicopter. I need more information. And if someone says, well, I believe, I'll be like, how? What is your basis? They can tap their screen. I believe it because I saw it on the screen. Okay, well then, by definition, you are a low info believer. We're not the same. And low information believers are the majority. And then truthers fall into the same trap. They become the low information non-believers when it comes to the opposition media, but they're low info believers when it comes to their own stuff. But we're going to fix this. Violet Pengon says, did you talk about the Cyclops 2 sub connecting to Starliner? No, I have not. I have not seen that. And I am interested in anything having to do with the Odyssey. In fact, there was a tweet I saw today with George Floyd's teacher doing her Pulse nightclub performance. And then she also played a mother at Borderline. She's the weeping mother archetype. And she ties into the Odyssey just kind of on the side. Penelope in particular, because her son is Telemachus, the son of Odysseus. But again, if you didn't know, the Calypso capsules, what got them stranded, sent by a Boeing. Calypso is just kind of a reference to the Odyssey. That's the nymph that keeps Odysseus prisoner. And we were talking about this because there's a Christopher Nolan movie, Odyssey, being produced right now. So this has to have some broader significance. Of course, Space Odyssey also ties into it. So we've been watching this story evolve very quickly, and the next step after Odysseus gets away from Calypso is he confronts the Cyclops. And that might be where we are right now. King Ravana says, I saw a burning Cybertruck Garfield cat relaxing in the ocean tide. Well, attacking, or if you key a Cybertruck, that's terrorism now. Apparently it's terrorism. And I thought those things are supposed to be indestructible. I just think they're unaesthetic. I mean, they're as attractive as a toaster. And when I look at them, I just think they're too bulky. There's nothing sleek or attractive about them, but that's just my opinion. And also, they're right out of Blade Runner. And the reusable rockets are right out of Werner von Braun's ideas. Like everything we're seeing right now that comes out of Musk and SpaceX, even the Hyperloop, I think he stole that from Willy Wonka. None of it's original. Okay, Titan sub is originally the Cyclops 2. It looked like, oh, that's right. Okay, wait, we might be onto something here. So you're talking about the Titan submersible where, yes, the Titan submersible implosion. Okay, it was originally called the Cyclops. We're going to have to look back into this. So a couple of things. The significance of going down to the Titanic. And we were talking about James Cameron, who, anybody care to guess how many times James Cameron went down to the wreckage of the Titanic? Now, he was there on 9/11/2001. I'll do a whole Wikipedia on this guy. I meant to do one on him already. Yeah, Diana South, you're correct. 33 dives. 33 to the Titanic. He's made 72 in total. And in between dives, he was at his mansion. Anybody care to guess how much money James Cameron's mansion cost? His California Goviata Coast mansion, $33 million. His sprawling California ranch. Titanic director sells his 102-acre compound for 33 mil. But the significance is the submersible, the deep sea Challenger. And I think the connection here with the Challenger, the exploded Titanic, even ties into the storyline of the shuttle Challenger exploding. And there is a parallel between the implosion of the Titan and the explosion of the Challenger that we were getting into. What's up, Estevan? Thanks for joining. Correct guess, 33 million. And I will be making stickers available. I used to say that the first person in the chat to guess one of our pop quizzes accurately will get a sticker. I just didn't have a good printer for them. Well, I just ordered a bunch of stickers, and I will be getting some for the pop quiz winners, and I'll have an easy way for you to order them through the site. But yes, this is a thing, though, is that the symbol of the Titanic sinking actually correlates. They've used this as a metaphor. Like the iceberg hitting the Titanic is climate change hitting the West, hitting America. It's a reoccurring theme. And it was correlated with the sinking of the World Trade Towers, and it was synchronized together in this broader narrative with James Cameron being present there, filming Ghosts in the Abyss. And this all correlates to Revelation 9/11 about the destroyer in the abyss. He's in the Challenger. Destroyer is a reference to Oppenheimer, the destroyer of worlds, the nuke. The Poseidon reference I'm looking at too. There's this nuclear sub, the Poseidon, that the Russians have that I think might also tie into this the space odyssey or odyssey story. Because after the Cyclops is blinded, he calls upon Poseidon to take revenge. So there's this, something happens, and then there's a revenge that involves, of course, the god of the sea. And so the destroyer is also called Apollyon, Abaddon, which we've correlated with Abaddon or Trump. I mean, it sounds, you have to see the mind maps here. We're looking at a multi-layered story that combines James Cameron movie characters like the Terminator to biblical references. And it correlates them with these broader metaphors of the sinking of the West, the fall of the Tower of Babel, America falling. But it's this story that's been told over decades, and we're watching it unfold. And the next phase has to do, I believe, with the shattering of our unity above, the falling of the space station. And this is something that I kind of intuited based on the structure of the story of our collective space odyssey as it's rolled out. There are certain patterns here. For example, before somebody landed on the moon, we had the immolation of Apollo 1. And then 19 years later, almost to the day, Challenger explosion. And then we have the space station. And so I was just thinking, there's got to be some kind of immolation of the space station before we get to moon bases. And right now they've said they're going to pay Musk $843 million to tow the space station down to Earth so it can burn up in the atmosphere. And then we go to Mars. So there's our space odyssey. It's our collective journey into the space age that we're seeing playing out here. Jamarian says, spoiler, the answer to every pop quiz is 33. Yeah, that's correct. And if they change their code, my answers will change. How many bullets did Frank James fire into the one subway car in the entire city that didn't have a CCTV camera? Jamarian May has, have you looked into the symbology or esoteric meaning behind the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Well, I've talked about this because I talk about Musk as a composite, as many of these world stage characters are, and one of his aspects is Willy Wonka. He even bought Gene Wilder's house. And it does correlate to the Hyperloop and the tunnel to the land where the Oompa Loompas are. And the factory thing with all the slaves, I think that's Mars bases. I think it's an allusion to Mars bases. And I think after, don't they fly away in some kind of glass elevator? But I'll have to look into it again. I know that Snowpiercer is said to be the sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That Ed Harris, the engineer of the train, is basically Charlie all grown up. Dan Crenshaw is Cyclops, says they are already here. Oh, nice. Dinah South has received the Paper Mache-alien t-shirt. Yeah, if you remember, there was a presentation at, I guess it was, let me see here, Aliens in Congress. They brought out an alien body, and it was definitely, here it is. The corpses looked like stereotypical depictions of aliens. These are two caskets brought to the congressional chambers in Mexico's Congress, and these aliens looked like paper mache. Here you can see it. It looks like some kind of a cake. Like, I would like to order this as a cake. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, it honestly looks like something made at a bakery, but you're supposed to believe that these are extraterrestrials. I'm sorry, this is a joke. But the UFO people believe anything. So I put this on a t-shirt on Amazon, and it says, I want to believe. Because the reason people believe in UFOs is they want to. There's no evidence. The alien thing, no evidence. There's no ufology. There's no ology in it. It's a superstition. And so here you just have a relic. It's not scientific evidence of extraterrestrial life. No, this is a phony religious relic, part of the religion of Nasatology, with their space heaven and their space angels, which they call aliens. And they believe it all with bad evidence and low information. Same with the ISS and same with everything else. There's so many things people only believe in because they want to believe. This is why we have to make a distinction between believers and knowers. The only reason people believe in chemtrails, sadly, is they want to believe. And hopefully they don't want to acquire some kind of psychosomatic effect, like chemtrail lung, because the mind is powerful. Lean Dion says, from a very dusty planet. Yeah, exactly. They're caked in some kind of a dust. Isabel Ann says, right before the spring equinox on Thursday, the sun will align with Neptune, Poseidon, and Pisces. This will be the last alignment for over 160 years. They love these rare energies to make lasting imprints. Yeah, we should probably also do, with this wiki, a cross-referencing of major events with the astrological events that correlate with the timing of it. So we're doing a surface level. This is what the mainstream believes. This is what's knowable. This is the additional information that causes us to be skeptical. We're not asserting any conspiratorial view of things. We're just adding additional information. And along with that, predictive programming has to be a part of it, any kind of media references. But I think we also need to add the astrological components. JP Morgan said, millionaires don't believe in astrology, but billionaires do. And that has to be true. Coyote Smoke and Mirror says, I calculated that 2 people in the SpaceX Dragon would need 10 tons of food and water to have survived 9 months. Well, that's interesting. Where's all that? There are so many discrepancies. Oftentimes these magic tricks can be debunked not by what they show you, but by what is conspicuously absent. And there are so many issues I have with the space station, but that's got to be one we have to look into. I wonder, what about all the hair from all the shaving? Those guys are always clean shaven. And as soon as I pointed that out, Butch stopped shaving. So he looks like Tom Hanks from Castaway. Okay, let's see here. Let's continue. Isabel Ann says, I want that shirt too. Okay, I'll make sure to put links. I've been kind of diligent about it, but if you go to insider.shop, what I'm doing here is I'm listing all the shirts that we have available on any site. And if I don't have it in-house, I will put a link to it below. So it'll just be listed as sold out. So for example, this auto hoaxer shirt, it's got the penguin with the chainsaw in the forest of misinformation, clear cutting it. It's out of stock, but it does have the link to Amazon. I use Amazon's merchant account. They reject a lot of my designs. A lot of these print-on-demand sites are very selective, though. Like, I can get away with putting Luigi stuff, pro-Luigi stuff. Like, I'm actually kind of in the psyop entertainment complex. I'm kind of profiteering off of the Psywar. I'm a Psywar profiteer. Is that bad? Like, at one point, I was selling 5G protective garments and chemtrail masks. And I was doing it to be ironic, but... Sakin says, Challenger shuttle exploded on the 666th hour of the year. Okay, so I want to find out, because that was the same week as Kobe O'Bryant. And I want to know what hour of the year was it when Kobe O'Bryant exploded. Because he had this thing with the 666 and exploding helicopters following him for some time. Do you remember his 666 workout? Kobe Bryant's workout routine. His 666. We did a number of live streams on the symbolism around him. The helicopter thing, the predictive programming contained in these cartoons and commercials. But I would be curious to see if there's a correlation. We also had an exploding helicopter this same week as well. And it was actually compared to the Challenger. And I said it before. I said, watch, this is going to be compared to the Challenger disaster. And what do you know? They said, let's compare Donald Trump's response to the Black Hawk being hit by the AA flight to Ronald Reagan's response to the Challenger explosion. Like, that comparison was made. And I think it's intentional. Challenger exploded 1 minute 13 seconds, which I think correlates with the 113 opening date of the One World Trade Tower that rose from the ashes of the twins. The 1 minute and 13 seconds. And the 113th shuttle launch was the Columbia, which also exploded. And I think there's some 113 with Apollo 1 I have to look into. I have to go back and revisit my William Cooper book where he talks about this stuff. Jamarian says, you're like the guy selling hot dogs and souvenirs at the Auto Hoax World Series. Well, here's one of the things that we have done from the beginning of this channel. Oh, thank you, Violet Pangon, 609 hours. One of the things we have done is we realized this is going to be censored. And at the time, we were mostly just focusing on NASA criticism, not even just on the news fakery, because we didn't have a full grasp of it. Although we knew certain events were fake, we were still at the point where it was like real or fake, not fake until proven real. But at the time, I said we need to start putting our content, our memes, into commerce. And we need to sell products, whatever it is, because it'll be uncensorable. And then you can create incentives within this media ecosystem for people to become content creators. And, money is like accelerant on this stuff. When people find out, when there's enough people, content creators in this arena, when content creators find out that there's an audience for media deconstruction and that it's fun, I think more will jump on. There was a period of time right before the Vegas shooting when people calling things fake were the go-to channels. And they started censoring us because you'd have an event going on and you'd have someone like me covering an event and calling it fake real time, sending people over to their chat. So they didn't like that disruption. Wake Soto says William Cooper most likely faked his death. I'll have to look into it. There are some people who think that he died in some kind of a shootout with the sheriffs. Others think he was suicided. I mean, he wasn't like a rogue necessarily. He had Q clearance. He was a demolay, which is like a youth mason. So he had some intel for sure, but Was he ever outside of the Psywar? No. In fact, he said that he talked about this. He said that there would be a lot of shootings, a lot of mass shootings to take away the guns. Well, they never took the guns. That was always a hoax. All these mass shootings were all faked. He never said, oh, they're going to fake a lot of stuff to terrorize you in psychological warfare campaigns for the next few decades. He didn't say that. He said they're going to kill people with mind-controlled assassins. So if anything, and I'm not being critical of him, because he knew, if anything, if he wasn't an insider, he was only drawing from the available information, which was guardrailed severely, arriving at the only conclusions he could have arrived at. Like, we have to remember, it wasn't even possible to have discerned the level of media fakery until after the 2010s. Diana South says, Elon listens, so he knows we know he's a construct, an actor, and a dupe. Yeah, well, he's an actor for sure. He's the Pope of Mars, the Martian Pope. He has a very significant historic role, and he's literally a construct. He's a propaganda vector. He's an effigy. He's an idol. But the person there, yeah, I'm sure he's a nice guy. But the persona that's being sold to the public is entirely fabricated. And the other day he talked about how the Democrats are following a script, or sometimes he's like, yeah, that Polaris flight, that the pictures they took of the Earth, it looks like CGI, but it's not. So sometimes it seems like they're trying to diffuse what we're saying by agreeing with us, but then drowning it in their own context. Sakine says, Kobe heli crash was the 611th hour of the year. Interesting. 611th. These numbers are something of a code, and they give away a lot. Like, it's not a coincidence that his 42nd birthday was celebrated that summer, at the same time that Chadwick Boseman, 42, Mr. 42, was being observed by the MLB. This is just so layered. I'll delve into it later with the full mind maps in front of me, but when you look at these patterns, especially the stuff that predicted it, like the cartoons and stuff, these eerie coincidences, no, it kind of gives away the game. We're not looking at real deaths here. And if that makes you mad, something's wrong with you. There are people who get mad when you say nobody died at such and such event. They get mad about it. It's like, what are you, a psychopath? Like, did you feed off that loosh? You want all the carnage? Like, this is good news. But they see it as some kind of, like, secular blasphemy to not believe the news, because the news media has supplanted religion. I talk about the space being the unifying heaven that all the religions can believe in. Well, mainstream media is the dominant worldview that all the other worldviews fit within. That's what I mean when I say it's a closed system. Everybody's in this box, and the box is entirely rigged. It's a worldview monopoly being exercised through controlled media, prefabricated events. They write the history in advance. They act it out day by day through their actors on the world stage. And they condition us to what's coming next through the echo chamber of entertainment media and every medium, every single possible avenue to get into your mind. Now, 6/11, 3/11, 9/11, what is the significance of all of this? Well, 9/11 is the New Year's Day on the Coptic calendar. There's that. 6/11, we found many connections that directly correlate that number to domestic violent or domestic, I think they call it domestic threats, DVEs, domestic violent extremists. Ever since McVeigh, who was executed on 6/11, 6/11, I interpret this, just by context, as representing the same thing as 9/11. But 9/11 being the external threat, 6/11 internal threat, it's some kind of code. And Timothy McVeigh is a very interesting character in this one, and I've done a story on him, but I got to go deeper. In fact, the Turner Diaries also needs to be brought up in this context. Even the author of the Turner Diaries, Andrew MacDonald was his pseudonym, but he was born 9/11, 1933. The book inspired McVeigh after he witnessed the destruction of the Branch Davidian compound by the ATF, where they incinerated 33-year-old Dave Koresh. And he bombs a building in Oklahoma. And the book, though, Turner Diaries, which inspired him, has some 9/11-like events within it. And then he dies on 6/11 at the age of 33. So you see a repeating pattern here. It's consistent. And then 6/11, 11/6, 11/6 Gotham underwater, if you've seen Batman. And the overlapping between these various fictional universes and the news is another pattern here. We see examples of, right now it's Mario Brother universe, but we see these various fictional universes are being co-opted for psyops. It's actually quite simple. It's overcomplicated and mystified by a lot of people, but in order to reach the most number of people and shape their worldviews, which is what media is for, they are putting their messaging in everything. Battle of Troy 6/11 connects to Odyssey. Now, the Odyssey thing is intriguing, and I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but there's a alt-right media figure who was a former editor of Breitbart, so he's not insignificant, but his cat named Troy ran away, and he has a lot of popular influencers like Tim Pool putting thousands of dollars into a Find My Cat fund, and the cat's name is Troy. So it seems interesting considering that this is at the same time that the two astronauts are returning home. And so the story of the Odyssey, if you recall, is after the destruction of Troy. So it's just another element, but the timing of it, I don't know. Milo Yiannopoulos, is he a Psywar propaganda vector? Well, he was Ye's manager, so it's not like he's disconnected from everything. Sakine, ISIS pertains to the twins. I'll have to look at that. Yeah, I'll open up phones if you want to call in. Let me go ahead and scroll through the notes, make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, this was a great find. Synchromorpheus posted this. Look at Luigi Mangione and Daniel Penny. Now, these are two separate psyops that we talked about. Luigi Mangione is a combination of Joker and The Madness. Daniel Penny is right out of Get Out. And it ties into Jordan Peele, and it correlates with Jordan Peele being inspired to do Nope by the George Floyd event, because this was another George Floyd-like event where he killed Jordan Neely. And Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele, connects with this event very strongly. And so we have talked about these characters, but more significantly, when Luigi goes into jail, this left-wing vigilante who killed somebody representative of the upper class in their class warfare version of things, as he goes into jail, Daniel Penny is let go. And he represents the upper class, taking out who? A mentally ill, homeless person in a subway. Again, Joker, Riddler, mentally ill. Consistent use of subway as symbolic of the underclass, those who fell through the cracks. Like Frank James, the guy who fired the 33 rounds, said he fell through the cracks. He was making videos warning the mayor about the mentally ill. Marjorie Taylor Greene compared the place to Gotham, said they needed a Batman, and she compared Daniel Penny to like a Batman vigilante. Anyway, this is all Batman world symbolism with these characters. There's a lot of overlap between these two. But just look at the archetypes, though. The outlines, the hair, the face, left, right. One's going in, one's coming out. One's lower class attacking the upper class in what is seen as justice, and vice versa. So the left is like, this guy's a hero, that guy's a murderer. This guy's a hero, that guy's a murderer from the right. Totally bifurcated psyop, and it's all about class warfare. And the Joker, Kill the Rich. Maxwell Azarello had the Eat the Rich shirt, and he was the guy that set himself on fire outside the Trump courthouse with a manifesto warning about the rich that were going to come after all of us. And of course, he did so on 4/19, the anniversary of Koresh being incinerated. But these are two psyops that are polarizing, that have a very specific interpretation to the left and right. Daniel Penny, and look at his name, Penny. I don't know. There's something about a couple of things that Synchromorpheus has picked up on, but I think there was something with Jordan Peele's movie that may connect to it. But anyway, Daniel Penny, of course, now works for J.P. Morgan, and he was at the Navy game with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump. So you can kind of see how he was elevated. By the way, Daniel Penny is one of the highest earners on Give, Send, Go. Now, the connection with Get Out is this. Leading up to the event where he strangled to death somebody who didn't even hurt anybody yet, leading up to that, there were months of videos that were trending on Twitter that showed mentally ill people going crazy on subways and bullying people. This was like a major theme. But what I picked up on was all the usual suspect right-wing culture warriors, people like Stu Peters, Lauren Witzke, Tim Pool, they would share these things with the quote, "Get out." Meaning, get out of the cities, go rural. Because another one of these dynamics, rural, urban, the Democrats control the cities, turns into Gotham, go rural, milk your own goats. You know, they have these big cultural divides they've created. You got to quarantine yourselves from the cities by going rural. And the people in the cities need to quarantine themselves against the anti-vaxxer, non-science, religious people out there. I mean, it's a great system that they have created here. It's Orwellian. It's perfect. I mean, it works. But what they've done here is they've manufactured these stories. So you have these right wingers with this chorus of "Get out of the cities, get out, get out." Well, then there's a movie called Get Out by Jordan Peele, where there's a character who looks like Daniel Penny, who strangles characters. You can actually find an image of him strangling specifically a black character, and he's a lacrosse player. Well, guess who else is a lacrosse player? Daniel Penny. So his look-alike in the movie Get Out, a strangler, is also a lacrosse player. Just a couple connections here. But the deeper connection is the movie Get Out, which has been, again, the phrase Get Out has a specific reference to get out of the subways, class warfare stuff coming from the top, criticizing the bottom. Jordan Peele said his inspiration for Nope was the George Floyd event and how it triggered all the subsequent events of the summer. The spectacle. And of course, Nope was about an alien ship and violent chimps killing people. But if you get the connection here, George Floyd, Jordan Neely, parallel events. And let's see, there's something else about Jordan Peele, by the way. Oh yeah, that's right. He directed that, or he was a producer for Monkey Man, which is a pretty good movie about a boxer who wears a ape mask, and he gets very rageful and has references to this monkey god that was being really injected onto the collective psyche last summer. But as we talked about, but that movie came out on 3/11, and we had made this connection between mind viruses, these rage monkeys we've been seeing, and the idea of a mind virus and 3/11 being correlated, obviously, because the pandemic date. See, we're waiting for the mind virus pandemic that shuts down the internet. That's one of the things that's going to happen. Now, I don't know if that happens after the nuke or before. I think it might happen after. And they'll say the reason why these right-wingers got their hands on the nukes is because they were on the internet working with Putin, and disinformation warped their minds. They caught this mind virus, and look what they did. So I think that's where it's going. Yeah, Onaman, the monkey god. And so last summer, you had the monkey virus goes viral. WHO's like it's a global threat. So you got the monkey virus. Then Bad Monkey comes out. Vince Vaughn show. Pretty good. Same day, 8/14/2024. Bad Monkey. Monkey pox. And then you had Chimp Crazy on HBO. Chimps Running Loose in Ohio. And then you have, Planet of the Apes. So we have this buildup. And then the game Black Myth comes out about this Monkey King where 1 million people are playing him in a live stream concurrently. So 1 million people are avatars. They're playing this avatar. They're playing this god as Houston reveals a 90-foot tall statue of the same deity. Like very concerted messaging across the board. They paint up the zeitgeist. But it was all happening at once. And I called it concerted messaging. It's not a coincidence. So I was wondering, well, what's the point of putting this out there? And then I think it all ties in, of course, to the rage virus. Like the chimp that kills people in the Jordan Peele film. Or 28 Days Later, about a virus that shuts down the world that originated from what? Chimps looking at violence on TV. That's the mind virus. You see the memes, you see it on TV, and you act on it. So we have to shut down the internet because you're catching violence through your eyeballs. It's all part of the broader censorship where it's now information can be deemed dangerous. Not a coincidence that the writer of 28 Days Later directed Civil War, another movie that has a Trump character. Trump, in fact. Trump gets killed by Kamala pretty much at the end if you haven't seen Civil War. But in Civil War, they make it clear that the right wing is anti-media. So what does that mean? They caught mind viruses from alternative media that turned them into terrorists. And racists. And they hate Reuters. And they hated Chinese people in the movie. They made them into horrible people because of everything they heard online. And that was really the point of the movie, Civil War. The point of it was, I think, ultimately about the mind viruses that agitated the right wing into becoming extremists. I've made these correlations before that what they have manufactured with MAGA is the MAGA ban, where they have infused MAGA with certain values. They just replaced the great Satan with the deep state. But it has all the same gripes, same attitudes. MAGA ban, Taliban, what's the difference? The extremists get their extreme content not from the Quran, but from QAnon. Same messaging. Lean Dion says the statue Obama reference was there as well. Yeah, at the time, Obama had just showed up in the news again out of nowhere, and someone had pointed out that he has a miniature statue of the Monkey King in his pocket. Verkjan says avatar comes from the Sanskrit word avatar, which is reincarnation of a god. Like Krishna is actually an avatar of Vishnu. So the avatar concept in those movies is the idea that they're like teleporting their consciousness into these other body suits that they're wearing. And when I was looking at that movie, there's a great deal of subtext. I mean, it's basically Dances with Wolves combined with Fern Gully, put through some AI generator, turned into a big CGI film. I mean, it's all environmentalism, anti-West, toxic masculinity. And James Cameron is on record saying that testosterone is a toxin. He actually said this. And it makes sense. Who was the big enemy? Who's the destroyer in Terminator 2? Who's going to kill the world savior, JC, John Connor? JC, Jesus Christ. There's a symbolism here. But it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And T, testosterone. The guy is obviously on something. So Arnold Schwarzenegger, shirtless, big guns, is the paragon of toxic masculinity and everything that they wanted to get rid of. That's the villain. Notice, too, that the movie made a villain out of a cop. And this plays into the story here because George Holliday, some rando, had a camera, supposedly a random person, was filming James Cameron filming Terminator 2. Then he's walking home, and Terminator 2, of course, evil cop beating people up. He's walking home, and he sees evil cops beating up Rodney King, and he records it on the same film. James Cameron recently talked about how the same film that triggered the LA riots was just filming Terminator 2 Judgment Day. But anyway, the correlation between his movie and the riots stood out to me again after watching Avatar 2, because following Avatar 2, there were riots in Atlanta. And Avatar 2 is about Atlantis, basically. Atlanteans, these water people. Well, Atlantis, next to Atlanta is this 80-acre wooded area, and there's a group of environmentalists who live there. Their leader was known for his long hair, which he cut and he donated to children with cancer. So there's a connection here, because in Avatar 2, the Na'vi are able to take their long hair and plug it into trees and animals and, like a USB cord, jack into the global consciousness. They communicate with their Gaia. The lesson in the movie is that the West is killing Gaia, and after we kill Gaia, because we don't know that it's alive, we have to go, like parasites, move to another planet. So we go to Pandora. And the Marines who are there have short hair, and they have no connection to nature. So they made this correlation between connection to nature and how the West is anti-nature. So now here you have environmentalists trying to protect 80 acres of forest from the police leveling it to make training grounds for their officers. So they can practice doing SWAT raids and no-knock warrant searches and all this stuff. So you can kind of see the contention building up, and it mirrors the movie, because the movie's about Pandora being taken over by Marines. Now you got this forest being taken over by cops. So now you have the environmentalists and the police in a standoff, and the environmentalists are throwing rocks and sticks. In Avatar 2, the Na'vi are throwing rocks and sticks, bows and arrows and spears at the high-tech Marines. The leader of the environmentalists down there in Atlanta is shot in his hands.
Thank you for feeding the Kraken first. The IPS thanks you for your support and participation.
Yeah, thank you for feeding the Kraken. It's about to surface. It really is. It's all leading somewhere. We couldn't do this without. So the connection here continues, because the leader of this environmentalist group that protests against the police, and they later united environmentalists with BLM. So you have the green Marxism, environmentalism, with the actual revolutionary Marxism joining hands. And, they got the raised fist of BLM juxtaposed with the big tree of the environmentalists, which looks like the world tree from Avatar 2's Pandora. So the leader of this group, the guy with the long hair, shot through the hands like Jesus, crucified, the stigmata, they did an article on him. And whenever they do a psyop, look at the pictures they show you first. They'll tell you everything. So they show him sitting down in his house, and he's got a few books by him. He's got Goodnight Moon and Where the Wild Things Are. So this tells the whole story, because Goodnight Moon is a reference to Pandora, which is a jungle moon. And the second one, Where the Wild Things Are, is about this island where these big creatures are. And the main character puts on a wolf costume and becomes their king. In Avatar, Jake, his name is something, is it Sully? The main character in Avatar, he puts on the avatar, like a costume, like a wolf suit, and he becomes the leader of this group that he basically joins. So Where the Wild Things Are being referenced ties directly in to the main theme of Avatar 2, as does the protest itself, and the bigger context of it's the West versus nature. It's the police as the vanguard of spreading this political and economic system of oppression that destroys Gaia, doesn't recognize her sentience. What's up, Alan Smith? Am I catching you live? No, it's a replay, but fascinating coincidence. Virgin says, yes, similar to the Avatar movies are Hindu gods who are blue, and Hinduism teaches that through science of yoga, how to tap into the universal consciousness. I actually believe that's true. Like, I do think that synchronicity happens when your waking consciousness, your ego, your everyday self is aligned with that aspect of yourself that doesn't get filtered through the meat suit. Like your, uh, like if you look at the body as an avatar for the soul, well, the soul doesn't solely reside in the body. It has a field, it has information outside time space. And I think that if you're in concert with it, you may get a lot of feedback, useful information from the environment, which is easy to mystify and thereby even just dismiss it as irrelevant or just an interesting nod from the universe. But no, I think it should be taken more seriously. It's an aspect of our mind that we're not taught about. And they mix it in with woo and they kind of throw it in with like paranormal and stuff. But it's only paranormal until it's understood. Like Arthur C. Clarke, any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic. But we shouldn't stop and just say it's magic. Ooh, interesting. Isabel Ann. Avatar 3 Fire and Ashes being released winter solstice 2025. Now, that's another interesting coincidence or correlation here. The solstice thing, because the Titan submersible went down on the summer solstice. And we connected it to a few things. The symbol of Cancer, the crab, and the submersible itself being like a crustacean, kind of like in a way there was something. Oh, that's right. When you have a solstice, as it happens, the sun appears to stay stationary in the sky for 3 days. It stalls. Solstice means sun stands still. And on the summer solstice, when the Titan submersible was going underwater, for a couple of days, nobody knew what was going on, and they were searching. So there was this period of waiting, of being suspended, like what's going on? They're suspended in the abyss. We want to know what happened. And I think they tied that in with the pausing of the sun. There were so many other connections there as well. It was just unbelievable. In fact, it was Godzilla's 69th birthday that year, and we had correlated the symbol of the crab, the kraken, Godzilla, and that the number 69 with the symbol of Cancer. And Godzilla's birthday is November the 3rd, which is also significant because 113 ties into the Challenger in the abyss, the beast from the sea, the nuke, and Godzilla was intentionally designed to be a metaphor for the atomic bomb. There was a lot of Metascript happening summer 2022 in the big movies. I mean, Oppenheimer and Barbie coming out, those two movies coming out at the same time. The Barbieheimer thing, these things were, that's another thing to consider too. None of these movies are released in a vacuum, and release dates often do have a great deal of significance to put movies in the same context. And there's a lot of fascinating overlaps between Barbie and Godzilla worth talking about. If you didn't see Godzilla -1, it's kind of like the complete opposite. It's an inversion of the Barbie movie. Barbie feminism. So Barbie opens up where it's the Stanley Kubrick 2001 Space Odyssey opening of the monolith. And she's in front of it in a bikini, which I think is a reference to Bikini Islands. There's some fascinating connections to the advent of the term bombshell as it relates to bikini models, but also a reference to Bikini Island, which all ties into this general theme of the nuke. But it opens up with Barbie, and the narrator's talking about the drudgery of motherhood. And all the little girls with their baby dolls start bashing the heads of the dolls against the rocks. See, this like mass infanticide, and Barbie winks at them. And that's the start of Barbie feminism and the destruction of this traditional role. And I'm looking at this movie, and then you compare it with Godzilla -1. And again, Oppenheimer is about the nuke, Barbieheimer, but Godzilla represents the nuke as well. And there's a theme here that was emerging. But in Godzilla, it's about a post-nuke Tokyo, and the main character meets some woman, and they find a stranded child, and they rebuild a nuclear family after the destruction. And they talk about self-sacrifice, thinking about the future generations, and how they need to maintain this unit. And it was kind of interesting because it's the complete opposite of the Barbie movie, where it's the destruction of the nuclear family, and the male Ken remains a doll with a nub at the end of the movie, and Barbie becomes a real woman. And the males are described as superfluous. So it was kind of interesting. One is about the destruction of the nuclear family and traditional roles in family, and the other one is about reassembling it. Okay, let's move on. We were talking about Luigi Mangione, Daniel Penny, two men in New York in the spotlight. Yeah, two men in the spotlight for New York killings, celebrated as vigilantes. Oh, this is from Gothamist. Okay, I thought Synchromorpheus put this picture together. So I think it's always interesting when the media notices its own metascripted theater and doesn't know it's all theater. They just see this as, oh, this is just a coincidence. You know, this is just the zeitgeist. This is just an expression of whatever. This is anything but totally fake. Speaking of totally fake, here's Crew 10 Dragon vehicle arriving. Looks like a total video game now. And I just see people on X all the time just calling it out. Like, looks fake. Yeah. And Musk is like, yeah, looks fake. Looks fake. We all agree it looks fake. However, he also says, but it's real. Busy565656 says, I just watched part of the Family Fang from 2015 about a family that does performance art in public, including a scene when they stage a fake bank robbery and have the son, who's a small child, shoot a fake gun. The father plays an officer, and the mother has fake blood and gets shot. It's a family of crisis actors. It's starring and directed by Jason Bateman, and his character gets shot in the ear. Here he is with a bandage. But it's a bad movie, and I couldn't finish it. It looks bad. Not all of his movies are bad. In fact, Ozark's really good. Great find. And thank you for taking one for the team. I realize a lot of these movies are difficult to watch. I have to go watch Mickey 17 and Captain America. I don't have a problem with it. But, you know, these are things we have to do. It's like you have to watch the news. We don't have to watch it. We have to be aware of what's happening. So listen to this. Giancarlo Esposito from Screen Rant says, here, in the Captain America Brave New World, his character Sidewinder plays a key role in the leader's plan to destabilize the United States' adamantium treaty, ruining President Ross's reputation and causing him to transform into the Red Hulk in front of the entire world. So again, this is intriguing here. We talked about the Hulk stuff earlier. So the opposition to the Red Hulk, to Harrison Ford, to Donald Trump, is this Sidewinder character. Same actor is his opposition in the opposition to the Trump character in Megalopolis. And in both these movies, they get shot at. In both these movies, they survive assassination attempts. So it's the same actor representing the Obama element. And I found the same actor archetype in other movies. So the mayor role is also reprised in the Man in Full, where it's the Obama-like mayor of Chicago who orchestrates the downfall of the Trump-esque character. And then you have the Homelander, who represents Trump, and his main opponent, who engineers his destruction and humiliation in front of the world, is Edgar, the CEO, played by the same actor. So we're seeing foreshadowing for something Obama is involved in that turns Trump into the Red Hulk, which is just MAGA extremism. When he becomes the destroyer of worlds, when he becomes... when Donald Trump reaches his final form, it will be the result of something that the Obama has been connected to. And I've heard this for a long time from JL, but I just didn't understand. I was like, well, Obama's like retired. But then he comes out onto the world stage again with Leave the World Behind, and he's been a regular fixture since. He never really went away. And what's interesting is the analysis done by JL often focuses on the birth dates of these various world stage players. And how did Donald Trump get into politics? Oh, that's right, focusing on Obama's birth certificate. And this all just draws attention to the significance of these dates and these various events. And so for years now, he's been talking about the significance of 8/4 and 6/11 in conjunction with Trump and what's to come. And so the Red Hulk, in my opinion, and this is what I think is tying together here, I think the Red Hulk thing could represent this Trump being somehow indirectly or directly behind this nuke scenario, at least as far as his extremists. And remember, he was shot at 6:11 p.m., just to reiterate, and 33 seconds. Mango says, Mickey 17 is comical, kind of silly, entertaining. You'll like it. We'll see. I mean, entertainment is a side effect of the propaganda, but you have to give credit where it's due, and they do get some really great actors and performances out of their propaganda vectors. Now, the reason I looked into Mickey 17, I haven't seen it yet. The only reason I know anything about it is AI told me. Perplexity said, oh yeah, by the way, this character has a Trump-like aspect. He dances a dorky dance. He turns politics into a cult. He talks about colonizing an all-white planet and a bullet grazes his face. I only looked into it because I saw the trailer and Mickey was wearing a hoodie, and I said to my notes when I was watching Flight Risk, directed by Mel Gibson, contained copious predictive programming for all the aerial immolations that we recently experienced. But the trailer for Flight Risk was Mickey 17. And oftentimes, the big psyops are forecasted in the trailers. So I make it a point to show up early and watch the trailers. Like when I watch movies, they think I'm some kind of a movie critic. The people at the theater I go to, because I always have a notebook and a clipboard, they're on their best behavior, like I'm reporting on them or something. But the way these movies work is they're just downloading so much information into your subconscious, and it's all going in through your peripheral awareness if you're not fully aware of what you're taking in. And if I don't take notes, I will likely miss a lot of stuff. And so I'll sit there, I'm in the dark, just kind of scratching notes down, but it all tends to result in some real life mirror, something in real life. In fact, Fly Me to the Moon was out, and they were making jokes about Boeing disasters right before a spate of Boeing disasters, including a tail cone from a C-17 nearly hitting a Catholic school. And then the Calypso mission, the stranded astronauts blamed on Boeing. And the reason why? Boeing has been presented as a paragon of crony capitalism. Profits over people. Deregulation. Same story that we've heard with Trump and deregulating the trains, which is why they did the Palestine, Ohio thing. It's all about blaming capitalism, money, and deregulation on the destruction of the earth, the environment, and society. Okay, Violet Pangon says, I need to go to the movies. Yeah, I honestly, to me, it's just research, but I don't think you can really understand the news if you don't watch the movies. And I don't think you can really understand the world stage and everything that's happening if you're not looking at what's going into the subconscious, because we're being hit on both sides. Okay, let's continue. A couple more things. Doge sackings at NOAA spark a debate over the tornado response. 37 dead. They didn't listen to NOAA because who? The richest man in the world, the most sinful, highest carbon footprint, and Trump. So Trump and Musk said, don't listen to NOAA. Gaia is not going to punish our overuse of fossil fuels. They didn't listen to NOAA either until the floodwaters started rising and they closed the Ark doors. But again, not a coincidence. At least 40 killed in the storms. Now, I don't really want to play this, but I found this video, and I heard Mark Sargent. He's a video game earther, And I don't have a problem with it. He's got a model. At least he stands by it. He believes that if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it, it doesn't make a sound because it hasn't been rendered. Because it doesn't exist at that moment. So it's a fascinating take. And he was on the Awake Souls channel, and they had a great conversation about the 100th monkey effect, the double slit experiment, and other stuff that doesn't exist, like Mandela effects. But I remember them being hypercritical of the guy. And one thing I never quite understood was why Mark Sargent was in a commercial where an angel statue is consistently just depicted as I mean, it's gross. It looks like it's urinating, and it's a Mark Sargent commercial. Well, he's in a commercial for some gaming website in Australia. Let me go ahead and just play this. Look away from the screen if you want to. It's just a statue, but I just think it's grotesque.
Fools. They are everywhere.
Cheers.
Not a compliment. Even flat Earth expert Mark Sargent could use it. A bloke who thinks space is fake.
I could do this standing on my head.
It'll make a splash, all right. At least that's what former rugby league whiz kid Todd Carney believes.
Yeah, it's a piece of piss. It's better when it's flat.
It'll make a splash, all right.
All right. So it's better when it's flat. Mark Sargent and a bunch of bizarre humor. I don't know. Is it funny? Maybe it's funny wherever it was aired in Australia, but I just think it's strange. And he's playing the fool, and they're literally just taking. It's grotesque. I'm sorry. I hate to even play it. Oh, it was an OS betting commercial about fools. Well, they didn't ask him about it, but I'm just bringing this up because is this evidence that we're in a video game reality? Could this have happened if we weren't in a sim? Mark Cringent says Thirst. Joe Santos says Mark Shilgent. No, it's actually Mark's R agent. Just take the R out of Sargent and put it over here. Mount Crushmore says weird. Yep. Exactly. Etheric Bliss has a great take that can never be unproven convenient. I've been thinking about it, though. This whole idea of the video game. And, yeah, I understand the model and the analogy, the metaphor. But video game literalism, I have a few issues with it. The idea of a tree falling in the forest, that's all just semantics anyway. You know, it's like, well, do you know what sound is? You know, there's the thing falling, the disturbance in the atmosphere, the branches, the friction, the animals might hear it. Or does it only matter if humans hear it? I mean, it's kind of a paradox if you overthink it or if you're taking things too literally. It's evidence he's an actor. Well, it does seem to me that he has become the designated face of the Flat Earth movement, which is a thing, the movement, which was based around the model of the Flat Earth, which was recently discredited by Jeranism, who I don't know what he is now. I haven't really listened. I don't have time to listen to somebody rant angrily for 3 hours because people think he faked his trip to Antarctica. It's his fault for not getting on camera with penguins. If I went to Antarctica, that's the first thing I would do. But his main thing is he's mad that people don't believe that he actually recorded a 24-hour sun. And I can understand the frustration. However, their skepticism is warranted. You know, we're talking about an agency. If the 24-hour sun experiment they did, if it was faked, or if it's a psyop, it must therefore have been performed by NASA. And look at their budget. They can fake a moon landing. You don't think they can fake a trip to some base? But if the base is real, there's no reason to fake it, obviously. And I'm still shape ambivalent. I don't really care at this point. It's irrelevant. It never has been relevant to me because I was never positing a complete model. My take on it is that the globe model is not complete. If you think it's complete, then explain to me the space fakery. Explain it away. You can't just ignore that. Until we understand the extent of the fakery as far as space travel goes, we can't say it's a complete model. It's been discredited, which means that we don't have a complete answer. And for some people, that's too much. And I'm comfortable with questions that are unanswered. We have known unknowns. It's better than having false explanations, no curiosity, and a disdain for free thinkers. 30K go to Antarctica should include penguins, says Joe Santo. For the amount of money they spent, yeah. You know, if I'm spending $30,000 to go to Antarctica, I want to land at the airport with penguins holding signs with my name on it. You know, I want some kind of welcome party. I think they got some crappy t-shirts. There was something they said, though. They all said the same thing. They're like, oh, look, that mountain, it's 10 miles away, but it looks like I could touch it. Same thing with that glacier. They laughed. You see them laughing. Look at that glacier. It's 5 miles away, but it looks like I could touch it from right here. So why are they laughing? And then you've got Witsit Spitsit, who's like disappeared, fallen. I don't know where he went. He's out there vaping, and people think he's faking his breath. I mean, the whole thing was just so insane. Vapegate is one of my favorite things, though, to have come out of this whole thing. Vapegate. If you don't know what Vapegate is, people are accusing these people in Antarctica of, well, vaping to make it look like it was colder than it is. And, you know, it's a humidity thing. Maybe you wouldn't even see it anyway. I'm still curious as how did he get a vape to Antarctica? Yeah, what's up now, he said. Well, Witsit Gets It went on a trip, a life-altering trip with McToon, but they didn't make friends. Like, I might not agree with somebody politically or as far as the shape question goes, cosmologically, but if I was going to go out to Antarctica with someone and form some kind of, you know, there'd be some kind of a friendship there. We would have an understanding. But no, McToon gets back, and he does a background check, and he starts publishing all these different police reports. He's like, oh, look. He called it Witsit Vapes It trading cards. And he created these trading cards out of Witsit mugshots. So you have all these mugshots for when Witsit, you know, his domestic abuse cases and drunken public intoxication, domestic abuse. He spit on that one. And so you have all these mugshots of Witsit Gets It when he got arrested at Mount Rushmore. And they made a joke about it. I'm like, that's kind of cold. I mean, after all they went through, he's just going to roast him like that in public. Moreover, I would have researched the guy before I went to Antarctica. Like, I probably wouldn't go into an elevator with that person, much less sleep in a tent with them. You do your background check before you go to some isolated outpost with somebody. But maybe he's working on a model somewhere. Hollow Earth is still an alternative, I believe. I think it still might have some viability if you want a model. But if you're looking for a model, it's premature. Their model, the simulation model, virtual reality model, doesn't have any evidence. That's the main issue here. There's zero evidence for it. There's no evidence for simulation, and there's no evidence for Mandela effects. Recently, somebody's circulating this thing about Cracker Jacks. You know, Cracker Jack is the character of this caramelized popcorn, and people call them Cracker Jacks, but it's Cracker Jack. But it's just a thing, you know. It's just how people describe it. Like here we have Sonics. In New Mexico, we have Sonics. And the fast food place is called Sonic. But for some reason, people pluralize it. But anyway, they say this is evidence of a simulation. No, it's evidence of misremembering. And I've done a thorough debunk of the Mandela effect. The fact that misremembered song lyrics don't count is inconsistent with their reasoning. But there's no evidence for it. They don't actually have a model, is my point. Well, if they do have a model, it's not a scientific model, I should say. The sim theory is, and video game reality, virtual reality, is a metaphysical model. And I would even argue that it's a monotheistic metaphysical model. And I'm curious about a lot of it. I hear people talk about it. We have discussions, and they wrongly describe it as a theory. No, it doesn't qualify. Just like there's no ufology. There's no systematic study of it. It's a superstition. Thirst said, how many mugshots between Whitsitt, Thompson, and the Morgile? Yeah, we have a complete deck. We could make it happen. You know, I was talking to someone the other day about creating our own playing cards, like the Illuminati playing cards, but these would be auto-hoaxology playing cards, fake news playing cards, psyop playing cards, but basically we would have a playing card for the psyop and then on the back do some information about it. And I thought, well, I'll combine this project with our wiki project. So every complete wiki page, or a page that does well, that I think tells the completest story, I will do a card for. And then we will make it available. Just click and buy. And I found some collector card printers that do two-sided cards, and a lot of them are not that expensive. We're talking $1 per card, $2 two-sided, if you buy the minimum order. So if you're willing to spend or purchase 25 cards to 50 cards at a time per version, then it's totally worth it. Because I know I could easily sell 20 copies and I'd probably retain 5. But we should do our own set. And I think over the course of a few months, we would have a complete deck. And I found 2 different printers that do it. So it's on my to-do list. And if you just got here, we've had a lot of stalling with this tabloid, and a lot of it has just been money. And so I came up with something today. I found an alternative format that I can afford to distribute. So it'll be the size of a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet, but it'll be the same thing. And then when I get subscriptions, which I'm going to set up, when I have a certain number of subscribers to future issues that I can confidently keep producing, then we'll produce them in the larger size once I have maybe 50 subscribers. So it will happen. The ball is rolling. Everything's moving forward. We have active bots, a lot of automation. We now have active Discord and Telegram. Violet says, making a card on a note card right now, but it has a penguin on it. Yeah, I think we need to definitely get into the business of trading cards, like Pokemons. Whisk Doladino says, left Jake the a-hole to come here. Jake the a-hole. Oh, yes. Sports are indeed fake. He does a great job of covering all of that. Let me open up phones. I had a question I'd asked earlier. How many plane crashes has Harrison Ford had? And how many is it? I'll have to ask AI, but I'm pretty sure he's had several high-profile crashes, and I think they're all fake. In 25 years, he's been involved in many crashes. I'm having a hard time finding the exact number. Okay, so he crashed in 1999, runway overshoot 2000, the golf course 2015, taxiway landing 2017, runway crossing mistake 2020. I think he's had 6. I think Harrison Ford has had 6. And I think these are PR stunts, building upon his his Han Solo persona. And I don't know if the guy that Mark Hamill, the guy who plays Luke Skywalker, he's super Trump deranged. And none of these Trump derangement syndrome celebrities are legitimately Trump deranged. It's just an act. Robert De Niro in particular. It's part of bolstering his presence, since he contained so much predictive programming for the Trump head wound assassination stuff in his whole character. So Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker versus Darth Vader. Maybe his Trump derangement, which is pretty severe, is meant to convey he's fighting the dark side and they're tapping into the Luke Skywalker thing. I don't know. But I do think these movie roles do play into how they're used in psyops. For example, Steven Gutenberg. You probably all saw the movie Lava Lantula, where Steven Gutenberg is leading a crew of people fighting the giant tarantulas that spit lava that come out of the volcano and burn down Los Angeles. So Los Angeles is burning, and Steve Gutenberg is on the news first thing. And the news are headlines like Steve Gutenberg is saving Los Angeles. Steve Gutenberg is helping the fire departments. He's moving cars. He's helping people in wheelchairs get to the evacuation zones. So Steve Gutenberg was just imitating his movie role. And before that, there was some picture of Steve Gutenberg, I think it's on his IMDb, where he's holding a fire poker, of all things. Okay, phones are open, 505-510-4226 if you want to call in. Lizelle says you never heard of it. You never heard of Lava Lantula, but I'm sure you've heard of Steve Gutenberg. Wasn't he in Short Circuit with the intelligent robot? I think there's something to him. I'll have to look into his roles, but my point being, these actors are often recruited for news, fake news. Who's going to call Agent Tim, says Ted Stryker. Yeah. Phones are open. I think it's Leo Pirate. We'll see who calls in. It's open phones for open minds. Even closed minds. If your mind is not off the grid, you can still call in. Just don't get offended if we call you a liar. I mean, a lot of people will call in with claims to substantiate some MSM psyop, and it's like you don't have any information, so you're a media advocate, which makes you a liar. So this character here, Rubber Duck, total fool. I mean, he's playing his followers for a fool. 526,000 hits. Whoever's behind Rubber Duck knows there's no such thing as chemtrails. He's not dumb. This guy zooms in on a plane laying trails 31 miles away, calling it dust. Now, the reason why they post these things and they call them chemtrails is they're getting paid. It's the chemtrail psyop that targets the right wing, the way that the climate change psyop targets the left wing. There's just literally no such thing as a chemtrail. There's nothing nefarious or wrong. I mean, you ever see a wake behind a boat? You know, the persistent wakes behind a boat, the churning of the water. Okay, well, or the dust behind a dirt bike. You know, you're on a dirt bike and it leaves a trail of dust. The trails behind planes are nothing more than just the expected result of the hot exhaust at that altitude. There's nothing perplexing about it. However, the climate change alarmists are running a sort of a business here. This is a business. So this guy will occasionally post, and it's all stolen content. They steal stuff from channels like ours, any small channel, and they'll repackage it because they're making money. And I don't hate, you know, whatever, it's their game. Engagement farming. So these engagement farmers are tapping into popular misconceptions. If I was capable of, I guess I could do it with a bot now that I'm getting into bots. I should just create a chemtrail bot, buy myself a Lambo, because there is money to be made in promulgating misinformation. Ted Stryker says Gutenberg was in Short Circuit and Police Academy. So he had a very recognizable face. Another thing, they were focusing on celebrities' homes who burned, like Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan while his house is burning, while his movie Flight Risk is in the news, which foreshadows the planes crashing that followed the burning of Los Angeles. But Mel Gibson is another one of these actors. He was in Stranger Things. Was he? All right, let's move on. I got sidetracked. I actually blocked the phrase chemtrails on X. I shouldn't even be seeing this. I don't know why I'm even seeing that. I blocked chemtrails. And my stress levels have gone down. Like chemtrails don't stress me out, but the chemtrail hoax stresses me out. Like I'm scrolling through Twitter and I got to see people panicking about the equivalent of the wake behind a boat, of the equivalent of dust behind a motorbike. Like it's just a simple thing to understand. No, the main doctor in Stranger Things was Matthew Modine on the mind control side. But anyway, they take these actors that are recognizable to a target demo. They kept on showing Paris Hilton's house. Her house had burned. And she talked about how this was the house where she gave birth to her son Phoenix, and Phoenix had his memories, and now like a phoenix from the ashes, they're going to rebuild. You know, the usual chat GPT claptrap that they just repeat. They just sound like they're reading scripts to me. But they keep on repeating these phrases like phoenix and ashes, and I'm like, okay, probably a hoax. I'm not saying homes didn't burn. Hunter Biden's house burned, and he had to drop his lawsuit against the guys who hacked his laptop because he can no longer afford to pay his attorney. But I'm saying controlled demolition. You can take a natural event and dress it up with the news. You've seen it all the time. If it's raining in Miami and the news wants you to think it's a hurricane, they'll shake the camera and the reporter will lean as though the wind is blowing him over. And the people in the background will just walk by casually, holding hands, eating ice cream like nothing's going on. You've seen it. These reporters will go out. It's like they're up to their waist in water, reporting about how bad it is, but people in the background are just like up to their ankles. It's just like because these guys they overacted. They will literally lean into the fake wind. So you don't think they'll play up fire? Of course they will. They will play up everything. A John F. Kennedy account on X with the government checkmark has started posting messages a day before the 80,000 files will be unredacted. All answers will be revealed. So Trump has been teasing out the JFK files and the 9/11 files since like 2015, and people still care. The QAnoners used to worship JFK. They were convinced he was going to come back and save them years ago, and they gave up. Actually, I can't say they gave up. I have an account here I did as a joke under my communities. I created a community for JFK Jr. people, and I've got thousands of followers, and they're always posting baby pictures of JFK Jr. It's their baby Jesus. They literally were worshiping. This is crazy. I hate even talking about it. It's so crazy. But from 2020 to 2023, the majority of QAnon people were convinced that Donald Trump was JFK in a costume. And they were worshiping JFK because they believed he was the second coming of Christ. And it's a twisted story, but it's not grassroots. It's not organic. It was planted because it's not a news story. You know, there was this recent Marilyn Manson album he just put out called One Assassination Under God, where he depicts himself in the video as the Umbrella Man. One assassination under God. And, of course, his tour right now, he keeps ending with the song Coma White. And the video for Coma White, he plays JFK getting assassinated. And he portrays him as the second coming of Christ. And so there's this connection here with Q, seeing JFK as Christ, and Marilyn Manson portraying himself as JFK and Christ. And this was from a video in the 90s, from 1999. And before the video came out on MTV, JFK Jr. crashed and died, 7/16/1999. So MTV put out a statement about how they didn't mean for the video to be insensitive, because the video was not only about JFK dying, but it was about how the public was now waiting for President White, the third Jesus, who would save them, meaning JFK Jr. So the song was about JFK Jr. as the third Christ, because the second one was shot at Dealey Plaza. And as soon as the video comes out, JFK Jr. ostensibly dies. Although he died on the day that Eyes Wide Shut came out. And this is another trail to go down. But there is this interesting subtext of Eyes Wide Shut that would make you think that Tom Cruise was representing JFK Jr. faking his death. I mean, it's intriguing because if you follow that, and it's not hard, there's a pretty decent breakdown of it by Chartword. It would also follow that Vanilla Sky is a continuation of the same story. JFK Jr. in the subtext. So I don't take any of this stuff literally. I mean, why would I think that JFK Jr. would die on the release date of Stanley Kubrick's final movie when his father died when Kubrick was screening Dr. Strangelove? And there are these consistent connections between the Kennedys and Kubrick's movies that are just, it's too much to ignore. So no, I don't think JFK Jr. is a savior or he's coming back, but I don't have any reason to think he actually died on 7/16/1999. But I certainly don't think he's Jesse Waters. Do you know who Jesse Waters is? He's like a 40-something Fox News commentator who was believed by many Q people to be JFK Jr. And they said, it's because Q said, watch the water. So whenever there's something that happens in the water, the Q people say, oh, Q said this was going to happen. And then somebody said, no, he meant watch Jesse Waters. So a lot of people are watching Jesse Waters thinking it was their third Jesus. Joe Santos says, they say there's a lot cut out of Eyes Wide Shut because it made the elite look like predators. Yeah, why would Tom Cruise agree to such a movie? I mean, even if they didn't cut anything out, there's a lot there that's questionable. That's overtly showing terrible stuff. And there's allusions to things like under the rainbow is the costume shop where the shop owner is essentially prostituting his young daughter. There's some strange little story subtext to Eyes Wide Shut. But I think overall, though, the movie Eyes Wide Shut is about, it's a reference, I think, to the subconscious mind and how it's programmed by the movie makers. Because Clockwork Orange, has Stanley Kubrick depicting the main character with his eyes forced open, and he's absorbing all the violent content. Sort of like the monkeys in 28 Days Later, who contracted the rage virus. And I think that's us. I think Eyes Wide Shut is actually a reference to us, that we're all Clockwork Oranged. We're all the subject of a vast, nefarious psychological experiment, and we're being inundated with mind viruses through our eyes. But there is a lot of strange stuff in there. If you look at the subtext, it's like, did they just leave their daughter with some strange people who are part of the cult at the end of the movie? It's all very strange. Then you have Stanley Kubrick's connection to NASA, which is fascinating, considering Tom Cruise is about to go to space, and Kubrick's daughter, Vivian Kubrick, is a Scientologist. So you have a connection between the worlds of Scientology and Hollywood and predictive programming, all wrapped into this. Tom Cruise being the Jesus Christ of Scientology. And if you look into Tom Cruise's symbolism throughout the years, how he's represented, he's always the hanging man, the falling man. In fact, at the Paris Olympics, what did he do? He repelled in front of the world. Like, why is that so significant here? Well, it was 42 meters. And the other day we were talking about the meaning of the various numbers they use and how it has consistency. So here's an example. So he repelled 42 meters in front of the public. And I have so many crazy examples, like the 42-year-old guy named Pedro, the acrobat, who fell and died in front of an audience at a Green Day concert while performing as Prince to Purple Rain in an elevator contraption. And Prince died in an elevator. But anyway, I have this mind map I was just going over. It's like you'll see a lot of examples of the number 42 being associated with the falling man. So what's the falling man? Another connection here. The guy who photographed the falling man on 9/11, 33 years prior, this is Richard Drew, AP photographer, he photographed RFK as he fell to his death, RFK being 42. So there's another connection here. You know, the falling man, a Kennedy, 9/11, a lot of overlapping. Braveheart says Tom Cruise is Tamas. I agree with that. I definitely agree. And I think the name Tom Cruise has significance to the idea of the double cross, the cross of death, resurrection. It's this reoccurring theme with him. In fact, I started watching a Mission Impossible, the latest one, and at the very beginning scene, he has to find these two keys and put them together. And each key is part of, it's like a crucifix, so twin crosses. And I've been talking about the Tom Cruise twin cross symbolism for a long time. The name Thomas actually means twin, so twin cruise, twin cross. It's all second coming stuff. The symbolism is fascinating. I mean, you get into the weeds with it, but let's move on. Okay, I'm going through my feed here. Here's President Trump. He says, "We are going to give all the Kennedy files out tomorrow. Nothing will be redacted. 80,000 pages." So are we going to find the part about how Lee Harvey Oswald is working for NASA and that NASA director, Stanley Kubrick, was assigned to do an assassination, and instead of going to the moon, he went to the grassy knoll? Are we going to find out that Oswald wasn't the shooter, but Kubrick was, and that it was shot on film, or that it was a Muppet with a squib?
Here, I thought it would be appropriate. We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this, and I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard, and that's going to be...
Tulsi Gabbard. Wait a minute here. Oh yeah, okay. She's, yeah. So these characters, they all look like villains to me. She's the one who did she does the triangle thing, which is, I think it's some kind of a hand sign from where she's from. It's not Illuminati stuff. So Tulsi Gabbard's behind it. We'll see. I'll keep up with this tomorrow. I'm expecting a nothing burger. Where did they get the hats? Here are the astronauts. We're waiting for the astronauts to come home. I don't know if there's going to be a disaster there. I don't know, but I know that the Odyssey story is still in play. There are elements from that, so we're waiting on the Cyclops and then Poseidon. Meditations on Media Fakery. The coloring book should be approved by tomorrow. So those of you who picked up the PDF, I appreciate it. I made the PDF available for those of you who print out your own coloring book pages, but I think you'll like one of the opening images in this forthcoming coloring book. It's Kubrick directing 9/11. And there's quite a lot more in there. In fact, let me show you this one. We'll make this into a pop quiz. Let's make this into a pop quiz. One of the images from the coloring book. All right, here it is. What crime did these AI-generated characters commit? Now, if you're just listening, you're seeing 4 mugshots, 4 bowl cuts. Pop quiz, what crime did they commit? Now, you shouldn't know because reality is supposed to be random and unscripted and real. But for some reason, things are so formulaic that we have discerned a number of patterns. And the best predictor of future behavior is, past behavior, relevant past behavior. So we're looking here on the screen. What crimes did these characters commit? Marion says 33. No, this is the first time that Pop Quiz did not have an answer that was 33. But you get a second guess. Waiting for an answer here. Again, your clue here, if you're just listening. Yep, Jamarian got it. School shooters. They're school shooters. For some reason, that is the official haircut of the school shooter. I have a theory as to why. I think it conveys something about class and status, social status, and perhaps even that they are unpopular. I don't know. There's something about their appearances that are meant to convey that they're outsiders, that they're not like us, that they're somehow rural, perhaps even. Anyway, this is Pope Elon, One-Eyed Jack, and the Shells.
It's like, we're all going to die someday. And if you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars? Okay. You know, if we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be kind of exciting. But so I think given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.
Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Give us each our daily bread, and forgive us our sins. For we ourselves forgive everyone who is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation.
And you can tell it's real because it looks